Welcome to Describing the Skybox, the podcast that's like a book club for people who don't think that books reward them enough for being good at them. I'm Chad Ruthermans.
And I'm Andy Kinnick.
And today, we're going to be talking about Parasite Eve, a game that was developed and published by Squaresoft and was released in 1998 on the PlayStation.
But first, if you can give us a like, a rating, or subscribe, it would be greatly appreciated. Chad, can you describe Parasite Eve?
Parasite Eve is a survival horror action RPG in the sense that, like, Final Fantasy VII is a action RPG. Like, it's a time... What do they call that? Like a time...
The ATB?
Active
Time
Battle.
Yeah.
That has been in my vocabulary for such a short period of time compared to most other people. And it sure is that. Like, I didn't actually know what to expect going into this game. And the mechanical side of it was like, once I kind of like realized what it was, I was like, oh, okay, it's going to do exactly these things, and gave me no surprises mechanically whatsoever throughout the game. Well, maybe one surprise, but it's one we'll talk about later. The mechanical side of this game was, I suppose, kind of a struggle for me to like wrap my head around in a way, because I am unused to games that play like this. I would imagine that you had an easier time knowing what was happening early on, whereas for me, I felt like I found myself thinking that the game was like utter horseshit and was cheating me very early before I like grasped that, like, no, it's like a RPG. They expect you to take damage and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. 'Cause things felt like pretty undodgeable a lot of the time. And I would be like, what do you want me to do? And the answer to that question was just get hit and then use like a spell or a healing item.
Yeah. I had a little bit of friction because I guess I just like wasn't paying attention, because like I didn't realize I had a heal spell until like halfway through the second day, because I was like, man, like this is really difficult. I have like no healing items. Like I'm running through Central Park Zoo and these enemies keep showing up, but yeah, then I was like, oh yeah, like there's like magic, and then I checked the magic, there's a heal spell. So after I addressed that blunder, I found it to be painfully easy for until like maybe the fifth day. Yeah.
And even then though, like, well, this might have been different for you because you didn't start the game knowing that you had a healing spell. Which, I mean, obviously you don't start with the healing spell, you unlock it at some point. But like, which does, just as an aside, makes me feel a lot better, because I sure did like have a moment where I didn't know what was going on with the magic bar, like the parasite power, parasite energy. That's what it's called. PE. Because how it works is like you can use spells outside of combat or inside of combat, but the bar only regenerates inside of combat. And the amount that it recharges is tied to a stat on your armor. So like that's the secret to it. And I just didn't know, and I don't remember the game telling me how that bar works. So I was very like stingy with my healing spells for a while before I realized that you actually have functionally infinite healing.
Right.
But yeah, I had I made use of the magic, and I made use of the healing items, etc., and also found that the game was like basically impossible to lose. I think there was I made like I played this on an emulator. I used save states. I never loaded one, and I never died in the whole game. Like I just walked through it without too much issue. And I don't exactly know what that is, because like the combat does feel like it can get difficult at times, but I just think that you always have the resources necessary to just tank everything, which is an odd choice in a survival horror game, but is also not that odd of a choice in a RPG, which I think there might be some clashing in the genres a little bit.
Yeah. Like my read on it was, like a pacing thing. Like I think they wanted it to lean more like it's obvious it's a shorter game. It's like under 10 hours. And I feel like they didn't want anything to be super hard. Like I feel like they wanted to keep like narrative momentum. Yeah, like I think maybe counterintuitively, I think it helps a horror game be scarier if you don't die as much. Because like dying and realizing there's like no consequence can really like make it less tense. So it feels, maybe that's a charitable read, but like I feel like it's kind of balanced around like the feel, or like, you know, like so that you're not like dying or getting stuck on stuff all the time.
Yeah, I have been saying for a long time that I think that like difficulty balance in a horror game is kind of a difficult tightrope to walk to some extent, because the game is supposedly presenting the player with sort of unpleasant or uncomfortable situations. The difficulty needs to be tuned in a way that still provides like the challenge that you need, but without being so harsh that most players would just quit immediately because they're like, that was horrible and I died and now I have to do the horrible thing again. I hate this, so I'll go back. Like, I thought that like Amnesia the Bunker pushed up against that, but fortunately had a lot of knobs you could turn to sort of dial the difficulty into a place that you liked. Though I think I made a point on that I was like, I didn't like that I had to switch it to easy, so your mileage may vary, I suppose. But the this game, I feel like I do think it's undertuned. I think that it could have been a little bit more difficult. I felt the pressure of death because it uses manual save spots in the way that like Resident Evil does. And so I felt like that was a good incentive to feel tension in the combat. But it did, like, you get your spell, like, heal 3, you get, like, in day 3 of 6. And it just heals for, like, 300 plus HP. Which is, like, an insane amount of healing. There was only one boss. I carried around so many revives with me all the time.
Yeah.
And there was one boss that killed me. That made me use the revives all the way up until day 5. Like, it was just one guy was tough, and then it didn't get hard until like the literal finale of the game. And even then, not that hard, frankly.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to brag.
Yeah, I do think it is a little too easy to manage stuff. To kind of jump back to a thing you said a little earlier, it similarly to like something like Echo the Dolphin, I feel like you run into like old game jank where like hitboxes and like pathing, whatever that's called, like, because especially on a pre-rendered background you have to like draw out the space the player can like walk on and stuff. That you can get tripped up on stuff. Like there was like one fight, like I had done the exact same fight. I think it was in the hospital. It was like a bunch of enemies that can poison you or whatever. And like the room looks a lot bigger than the actual walkable space. So I was like trying to like run around a guy and it got pinned up against the visible wall and then just got like super poisoned and like hit by like 4 attacks at once and still didn't die.
Right, no.
But yeah, you run into like those kinds of things because like I feel like there's a cool system there where like you can run around and you can avoid attacks, you know, to the best of your ability. Like there is like a depth perception issue sometimes. But yeah, you can like avoid a lot of damage, and it's easy to manage your health. So like I think that goes a long way towards just making it feel very easy in a way that I think would be very difficult to balance. Because like the only way to really counteract that is just make everything do 1,000,000 damage. And like, that doesn't feel good to the player. So that's a tricky, I think, balancing act for sure. Did you like, I feel like I never ran out of bullets to the end of like day 4. Like I like beat the boss, like the spider on the roof of the hospital, or is that day 3?
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
That's 3, I think. But I don't know.
Like I beat this, and then like they do the thing where you have to like ride down the whatever those are called, the window washer thing.
That's what I was gonna call it. Yeah,
yeah, and like an enemy jumps you. Which I thought was actually a pretty good scare, and it was like a stressful moment. But like I ran out of bullets there and had to pull out the fucking baton and club it to death.
Oh,
so that was actually a pretty cool moment. I almost felt kind of scripted. So yeah, like that's the only time I ran out of bullets. Because like up till that point, I was like, I'm gonna go on the episode and be like, what was the point of even like making that an inventory, like a resource you had to manage? But I did run out.
Yeah, I want to. I'm going to respond to this. I want to preface it. I want to say, hey, Parasite Eve fans, and also other listeners of the podcast. I have a lot of positive things to say about this game later. So, like, hang tight. I promise it's coming. Because you just unlocked a big ol' thing for me. First of all, no, I didn't ever run out of bullets. I had comically too many bullets and had a similar thought to you where I was like, what's even the point of any of this? Until I switched to an SMG, which I'd been using rifles for like the whole game.
I also favored rifles.
Yeah, I liked rifles because they had range and high damage, and I was like, what else even matters?
That is what guns are supposed to have.
Yeah. So I used the rifle for most of it. So like enemies would take like, I don't know, between 3 and 6 shots most of the time. And then you would get like 6 to 18 bullets back every time that you did a fight. And you would regularly find like packs of bullets that had like 30 or more bullets in them. And so I remember going in to the level, it was in the museum level when I switched to, I tried a couple of different weapons in the museum level. And one of the weapons that I tried was an SMG that fired 7 times on a turn. And I like suddenly realized why I had so many bullets. It's like, it's accounting for people who are using faster firing weapons. This is why every game in existence uses different ammo types. Because it's insane that everything uses the same. And so, like, a lot of players, this is like a system that basically doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And then to some players, it's like a critical part of your resource management. And that feels like 2 totally separate approaches to it, which I find really weird.
Yeah, like, so in my experience, and I didn't experiment that much with this, but I was using a rifle for a while in like the middle chunk of the game. And I was like, oh yeah, I mean, you can like swap the abilities with the tools. Like I haven't been paying attention to that at all. So like I swapped an ability onto the rifle. The rifle had 2 shots by default. And then I swapped out an ability that gave it 5 shots. But like when I did that, like it made each one do less damage. So yeah, never mind. No, okay, never mind. That checks out. For some reason in my head, I was thinking it like equalized like the amount of damage to the amount of bullets so that it would be the same. But that's not the case. So never mind.
No, yeah. I think so. Full disclosure, this is not from experimentation on my part and was not really a part of my experience with the game. This was a thing that I had to Google. because I just had no idea what I was looking at. This is when I was like, there was a moment later on when I was like, oh, I have save states, which means that I could just make a save state and then fuck around with the weapons. And if I screw something up, I could just revert the save.
Right.
I never ended up doing that. I mean, I did make the save state and then fuck around with the weapons, but then I never ended up reverting it. But it is, to my mind, so needlessly confusing and untutorialized what that stuff does. And this game tutorialized everything. Like, the first, like, one mission, like, it would stop you all the time with stuff. Am I conflating this with another game that I'm also playing right now? Hold on. Did this game stop and bring up menus that told you how to do stuff?
Only on like the first day, like in the Opera House, as far as I remember.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think this is right. I think that I'm not going insane. The first day does tell you how to do like all of your basic things that you need to know how to do. And then it introduces what is perhaps the single most complicated system I've ever seen for weapon upgrading in my entire life. And it's not complicated because of the actions that you take. It's complicated because the game is bad at showing you what stuff does. So, to my understanding, when you put like a multi-shot power on a gun, that gives it more shots. It is more damage, and the downside is supposed to be that you take longer standing still firing bullets in combat and are more likely to get hit. And then I think that it does reduce the individual bullet numbers, but like it rounds out to being like, if you're shooting 2 bullets, call that 100% damage. And then if you shoot 3 bullets, it's like 112% damage. Like, you get more damage out of it, but fewer numbers per shot that you take, if that makes any sense. So it has these, but there's no way of knowing that without just doing it and trying it yourself. And the way that the tools work is that they destroy the weapon that you take the ability from and put it on the other one. So there's no going back after you've done it, which makes it a risky proposition to experiment with, because you could destroy a thing. And then the other option is that rather than taking an ability, you instead take the stat line from the gun, but it's only the things that you added to the gun, which promotes this very weird play style where you just like take a gun that has no abilities that you like and use it for a long time, and you just pump every stat up you get into it, and then you eventually sacrifice that onto a gun you do like with abilities that you like, and then that's how it works. I don't know. I found this, as somebody who likes to play with different options, I super hated this system because like it felt like it discouraged me from trying new things. But I do feel like it has potential as a cool system. I just think they went about it in like the most asinine way they could have possibly chosen.
Yeah, I feel mixed about it as well. Because it feels really emblematic, I think, of like issues that Square has at making games, even to this day. Because I feel like the game, I think, wants to be a more condensed stream. Like, it's like a different type. It's set in New York City. You know, it's a horror game. It's obviously very different from their usual like fantasy RPG fare. So like they do simplify certain things, but then they also put in this complicated system, and like, you know, they're always concerned, like back in the 90s it was like marketing to a Western audience, and like nowadays it's like to an international audience, and like it feels like they don't know like what knobs to turn, because like I feel like the system is interesting, but I feel like just is not a good fit for a game this short. Like I feel like it could shine in a longer game. Because like it feels like you can just kind of ignore the system largely because you just keep getting new guns, and you run into that problem of like, oh, like I don't want to like pump all these resources into this gun if I'm just gonna get a better one. Like you definitely, like, at least I had that thought a bunch throughout the middle of the game. So yeah, I feel like they want to put in those complicated systems because I know at least like in Japan, from what I understand, like players tend to like those sorts of systems, like those really nitty gritty stats, you know, and experimental, like get into the numbers sort of systems. So yeah, I understand like why they wanted to include something like that, but like it just does not feel like a good fit for the other goals of the game.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it is weird. Not bad, but yeah. It's hard to sum up, I guess.
Yeah, I find it to be I don't know. Especially like the fact that you have to be in a specific place in order to put new slots onto the weapons, which is just like one facet of the weapon upgrade system. And the fact that like, I don't want to say, there's another thing that I want to talk about mechanically that I think actually takes this cake. I agree that it's like not bad in like a pulled back, like isolated sense, like amidst everything else. Like it does feel like it's maybe kind of a footnote, especially if you don't engage with it too much. But it is like one of my least favorite parts of this game because of how much just like menuing and like looking at stats and dealing with unintuitive PS1 menus that this presented me with. And it really took a lot of the fun out of it for me in that sense. So I hazarded like trying to figure out a way to like fix the system, like in my own head, like what would I do to change this around? And it really is just like, it just has to be replaced with something else if you wanted to keep a gun upgrade system in the game, because right now, like, it's so hard to tell what's going on as a first time player.
Yeah, definitely.
And we're so far past the date of this game's release that it doesn't matter.
Right. I feel like it definitely should have taken more pages out of the Resident Evil's book and just had a handgun and a shotgun and a rifle.
Right.
Let you upgrade those and like not have like a bunch of guns of the same type that, you know, unless you're a gun enthusiast, the names are just numbers and letters and you're going to confuse which gun is which and which one you just picked up. So
yeah. Yeah, no, it's kind of a nightmare. I will say I liked the concept of being able to be like, oh, I have a sniper rifle that shoots really fast, or I have a submachine gun that shoots shotgun shells. Like, the fact that that's a thing that you can do in the game is cool, but it does usually just make the weapon worse than if you weren't doing that. Which kind of gives it the Lies of P problem, where it feels like there should be like a weapon fantasy that you're fulfilling by like Frankensteining things together. But ultimately, because the game doesn't want you to do that and end up with something super overpowered for the sake of balance, it loses the fun element of that. But I don't know. It's not like it didn't ruin my experience, despite all of this talk about it. So, like, I can't be that upset. It's just like there was a lot going on, and a lot of it was not amazing for me. The one thing that I do think might be my least favorite part of the game, though, just to get it out of the way while we're on the topic, are inventory limits. Holy shit, it was the most aggressive inventory limit I've ever run up against.
Well, besides Pokemon Red and Blue.
Except Pokemon Red and Blue.
I found it annoying as well. But like, I feel like it did lead to some of those survival horror moments, though. I actually feel like I like that there's an inventory limit and that you have and I think it's actually pretty cool that all of the treasure chests you can actually deposit items in them. I think that's an interesting idea. But yeah, I feel like it would need, once again, to rip off Resident Evil a little bit more. If the rooms with phones had like a chest that persisted for you to store items in, that would be nice. But yeah, it didn't bother me too much because I was just getting rid of tons of crap. Like I think I realized pretty early on how much stuff wasn't important and wasn't hanging on to it. I did not fall prey to the I have to save all of everything until the end of the game and then have an inventory full of stuff that I've never used. So yeah, I agree. It's a little too limited, but like I don't hate it. I think the genre kind of welcomes that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it is like a necessary part of the genre. I think that the problem is that it mixes poorly with the other systems that the game has set up. Yeah. But what you said is exactly what I was going to say, though, which is it just needs a teleporting magical bottomless box.
Yeah, and they set up
like
that,
Resident Evil has.
There's that NPC who I feel like is so soap opera-y. In that like, he's like he works in like with the gun. I don't know what the name of that job is, but like there's the person at the police station who like keeps track of an inventory of all the guns, and issues them out. And he's like the trainee of the person who does that, and he's the one who introduces like the item storing, system. And like it did kind of set it up like you just have him like on your squad and have him follow you around, and then in each save room he's there, and like you can give him your items.
Right.
Like it even like felt like it was set up for that, but then they just decided to give him a tragic story where he dies. Which I think happened too early. I think that would have hit harder if it was later in the game. But
agreed, yeah. Well, especially considering he has like this whole thing where he is the guy who like runs the gun table, but he also is like really anti-gun because he like his wife and daughter, their son
or daughter, yeah, one of the two.
Yeah, I don't remember. Like his family was like died in an act of gun violence, and he's like, well, guns are maybe too strong or whatever. But then you go to him and he has no problem like giving you an M14 and also upgrading it by allowing you to put shotgun shells in it if you want to, which is like, it's such a weird bit of like, it's, I don't know. It's now I'm
the
gonna,
messaging is messy.
It is. Also, my brain is going to melt if I, for some reason, don't remember the word dissonance, which fortunately I did. It is a weird piece
your
of
mitochondria
dissonance.
is going to overheat and cause your brain to melt.
My body feels hot. So yeah, it is weird. But yeah, and I think that, yeah, if there was some way of managing your storage, and I think the biggest thing is just because of the gun system.
Right, yeah, you're getting so many guns.
Yeah, like tons of them, because they want you to use the system to destroy the guns to put things on your other guns, but you don't want to do it, because if you put good stuff on one gun and then want to move it to something else, you have to destroy the rest of the gun. So it becomes like this whole push and pull with the inventory system.
Was there a point to the junk item that you can pick up off of enemies, or is that just there to punish you for hitting select take all on every end screen?
That is what I assumed through the entire duration of the game, but I've learned after finishing it that if you give the junk to the guy at the gun counter, who isn't the original one, but after he dies, the guy that takes it, the younger guy who loves guns and collects gun trading cards, if you give him enough junk, he will make you a weapon out of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
that
I have
makes
no
sense.
fucking idea.
Because I did the same thing. I assumed it was in there to punish you for just hitting take all after every battle. But when we sat down to act, when I put on my podcast hat, which I'm actually wearing right now, I was like, I just had that thought. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Was there a point? So I'm not surprised to find out that there was one.
It's funny because, like, it does, like, even as it is now, even if it wasn't intended, it does do that. Like, it does punish you. Because if you have a full inventory and you go into a battle, you can't take the rewards if you have a full inventory without dropping stuff. So you can't, like, use medicine that might help you in that menu. You have to just throw it away if you want the thing that's in the rewards. So it is like that. It does actually serve that function as well, which I kind of like on like a meta level, but I think in a game that had this much stress on the inventory already, it feels like a little bit unnecessary. It seems like the difficult parts of this game are all in the very irritating box, and the like fun gameplay challenge box is empty. It was like, did you want to dodge moves because it's an active system where you have the ability to dodge moves? What if every random animal based enemy had a screen wide AoE energy blast attack for some reason? I do want to talk about, I want to divert a little bit. So like, let me know if you find anything else in those like nitty gritty mechanical things that you want to insert at any point. Because the first note that I actually took for this game was just that this game was such a missed opportunity for us, because this could have been a Christmas game because it's set at Christmas time.
Well, yeah, after Christmas though, because it's before New Year's.
Right.
That
well, it's
liminal week between Christmas and New Year's.
A rare focus for a story.
Yeah, but a really good one, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually surprised we jumped right in on mechanics. Because I feel like there's like a lot of like pedigree to this game that like I anticipated us jumping into right away. Yeah, like I do think the game is like super atmospheric. And I think that's one of its biggest strengths, and I think that is part of it. I think the opening is really interesting, where you you go to an opera, and like the fact that it takes place in that dead week in between Christmas and New Year's, and then the fact that like the New York City is like evacuated because of the parasite, and there's like some kind of like that, and the actual like cynical reason for that is just because they didn't want to like have to model and animate NPCs. But that limitation, I think, actually really aids them, because like it adds to that atmosphere of like an empty New York City is creepy.
Yeah, and it's a shame that they like use it as infrequently as they do, because those moments of the game are so incredibly well done. Like, Squaresoft is known for their ability to like craft a good looking environment, and so like those empty New York streets are just like really nice, and then they'll be like, now go into the sewer for 2 hours.
Well, you got to have those dungeons.
Well, obviously.
Yeah, but speaking of Square Enix being known for things, I think it's fascinating how much like that like old school, like you get a job at a company and you stay there your whole career culture still exists in Japan, because Hironobu Sakaguchi, the creator of Final Fantasy, produced this game. Tetsuya Nomura of Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy VII fame did the character art for this, and Yoko Shimomura of also Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy fame did the music. And Nomura and Shimomura still work at Square Enix, and Sakaguchi left and made a new company. But
Right.
It's wild that all three of them worked on this game, and they're still doing similar work today. So yeah, it's definitely like, it's really interesting because like this feels like the kind of game that would have been made by like a side team, and I think it largely was, but it still had like big names working on it.
Right.
So like, I feel like that's like an interesting thing about game development in like the 90s.
Yeah.
That like, yeah, like things didn't take as long or weren't as expensive, and like you could afford to take the bigger talent off of the main things and have them work on something like this. And I think that's a large part, because I think especially Hironobu Sakaguchi is to credit for like the atmosphere in the world, because like I think that was like his like bread and butter basically. Because like he left Square and made his own studio called Mistwalker Studios like forever ago at this point. And one of their more recent games is called like Fantasian, I think, which was like an Apple Arcade game for a while, but now I think is on Steam. And like the whole thing about it is that like the world literally looks like a diorama, and like I feel like he's always like really been a person who really cares about like what the world looks like and feels like. And I think you really feel that in this game. Like I feel like the atmosphere, and like even though like it's a PS1 game, it's very limited and like you're warping around on a map of New York City, like it still manages to feel like New York. Like I honestly feel like New York feels like it has more of a presence in this game than New York did in like The Wolf Among Us.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think he's really good at that. But anyway, I've gone on long enough about the Square Enix staff. I just wanted to get that all out there for the nerds.
I do think that it's like important to call out, to at least to some extent, because like it does show sort of like what like this game is doing something very different than what you think of when you think Square Enix. Maybe not if you were like around at the time, or like Squaresoft rather, because like you had games like The Bouncer and shit that were, check out the episode on The Bouncer, that were different from the usual like JRPG fare that you would expect from them. But it is doing something different, but the stuff that it gets right is kind of just the same stuff that it got right in Final Fantasy VII and shit. Like it still feels in a similar way. I mean, the writing is not there in comparison to some Final Fantasy games, but
you can finish your thought if you had more, but that's a really good segue. Because I just learned today this book is either loosely based on or is a sequel to a Japanese novel.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I just learned it today because I was like, while I was playing it, I was like, oh, like these cutscenes. I mean, like they keep going on and on about like mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, blah blah blah. And I'm like, man, they're really leaning into this like pseudoscience stuff. And then apparently this game is, I don't remember if it's like loosely based on or is a sequel to a book written by a Japanese scientist. It's like a science fiction novel, but with the same name. And apparently a lot of the like science is based on like actual, like obviously it's sensationalized for fiction, but like based on some actual like scientific theory. And I think a lot of that, like, you know, what I thought was just like technobabble, but for science. I don't know what science babble.
Science babble.
I thought that was just bullshit, kind of made up bullshit, but apparently it's not.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting because I think that the biggest problem narratively that this game has is that stuff, which
They don't
finding out that
integrate it
it's
the best.
yeah, and that's the biggest problem is that like it's relegated to essentially two characters, neither of whom I remember their names. So this is gonna get complicated.
I think it's Moeda or Maeda or like the science, like the Japanese scientist,
like Maeda or something.
Yeah, Maeda. He apparently his design is based on the author of the book.
Ah, interesting. And then there is Dr. Klompf or whatever his name was.
Yeah, Hans Klompf or something like that.
Who the two like scientist characters who have like a big part in the story. And whenever they're on screen, and like to be abundantly clear, like we are a podcast that played and loved playing games like Trapped and Realms of the Haunting and Harvester, where like if something is like campy and strange, there is entertainment value in that for us. But I will
specifically 999 is a game I felt so about, but my favorite part about it was the pseudoscience.
Right, the Ice 9.
Yeah.
Never melt ice.
So we're all about that kind of stuff. In the right context.
It's really good for us, like as just like a narrative tool. It's something that's very. It feels almost dated. It's similar to like if Jurassic Park had the "this is a Unix system" line 50 times in it. Essentially, like there's so many little elements of it that are like, oh, now we pop back to this part, and then they're going to be like, well, they had this sheet of people who had compatible blood types, and it's like, but why? It's like, oh, because they're going to melt them down. Like, it serves a cool purpose in the game, but it is very, like, kind of hacky writing in the sense that, like, nobody, as an audience member, actually needs to know any of it. So I'm so mixed on it because like I want to say like that makes the writing bad, but then also part of it's like I still enjoyed it though.
Yeah, and this was 1998, so part of that might be up to translation.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's the thing that you can't really discount. There's a lot of things in this that are very wordy. Like it's very long, a lot of the cutscenes and the dialogue scenes in the game, and that's a lot of room for there to be potential errors in intentionality, like when you're localizing a game. So I will give them that. But I do want to fucking transition a little bit to the coolest thing in the game, which is all of the cutscenes and the character designs and the pre-rendered graphics everything's so fucking rad. This is the kind of game that like playing it now, I do feel like I am plagued by the specter of I currently play video games that came out in the last 5 years most of my life syndrome. That's just a long name for a syndrome. Where I'm like, I wish the inventory limits weren't that strict. I wish that the gun upgrade system made more sense. I wish I could fucking dodge an attack once in my life. But on the flip side, if I played this in 1998, I 100% would have like so much nostalgia for this game because of when you walk into the room, into the hallway under the stage at the opera house, and it like cuts to a pre-rendered cutscene of a 3D rat whose like eye explodes and melts down his face, and then his arms come off, and he becomes a big mutant rat monster. It's so fucking good. And like today I'm like, that looks amazing. They show the whole transformation, like it doesn't shy away from stuff. Like real sweat went into the animation work on this game, and it's so good in like exactly the way that I wanted it to be.
Yeah. It does feel very nostalgic. The cutscenes go pretty hard. Like it's interesting to like look back on this era of games development, and I already kind of touched on this earlier, but like, yeah, like Final Fantasy VII came out a year before this, and this game looks like so much better than it, but it's like way smaller scale, way shorter.
Right.
But then you see Final Fantasy VIII come out after this, and it looks about as good as this game on a grander scale. And it's like, that used to be like the way like game development worked, right? Like you do like the main title, and then you do like a couple smaller things. You'd learn, you'd put that into the next thing. Like, yeah, companies used to make like several games in a generation and not just one.
Right.
So yeah, like it's really interesting to see. Yeah, and like it's putting it, you can see where it's putting its money. For sure. And it's like very smartly, I think, doled out across the whole game. Yeah, like the cutscenes are very like intentionally placed, and like, yeah, they hit pretty hard. Yeah, like the one with the rat is probably going to be the most memorable one because it's right on Front Street. And then the one where like Eve melts everybody in Central Park is also pretty memorable. But yeah, no, I agree 100%. Like it's, yeah, I just think it's really interesting to look back on now. It's one of those games, and we've talked about this phenomenon many times, but like, this game made me feel nostalgic, even though I didn't play it at the time.
Right.
Just like playing a new PS2 game, or a PS1 game, I mean. It just, yeah, it gives you a certain feeling if you were around at the time.
Yeah. It is just like, it is, because you've seen, well, it's interesting for me, because like, I didn't play Final Fantasy VII when it came out. I didn't play Final Fantasy VIII ever. So thinking back, like when I think about games that had like this kind of an impact on me visually, like it really starts in like the PS2 era. So for me going back, I was actually kind of like, and this is just lack of experience, I recognize that, but like I was kind of blown away by how this game looked. Like I thought it looked fucking good.
Oh yeah, like this is definitely like a really good looking game for the year it came out.
Yeah. Especially in context. Like it really was like an insane reveal for me when I started seeing like a lot of the work that got done. And I don't know. I really loved it. I love the melodrama of the story where
it works.
Yeah. Like they
I
brought
don't know how to put it into words, but like there's something about it.
Yeah, I think it's like all of the
drama.
characters are so. It is cop drama-y. It's almost like, yeah, I think you used the word like soap opera-y earlier. It has that because everybody is very emotive to the like. I forget all the characters' names. Sorry, I know Aya and Eve because they're the main characters. But your partner Daniel? Question mark? Yeah. Just like in and his introductory scene punches a reporter 8 feet across the ground. And it's like that, like it hits him. It's such efficient characterization of like how he is a rash actor, and they actually see that through as it goes on. And it's not like there's a lot of subtlety to his character, but he's consistent. You know what's going to happen when he's in the scene, and he's given a lot of really good dialogue also. Even though he seems to go between caring a lot and not caring at all about his ex-wife, Lorraine. But
right.
I don't know. I think that may have been some translation issues or just like inconsistent writing in that case. But like for the most part, all the characters follow a similar trend. Like I think everybody's introduced really well, plays really well. They play to an archetype, but they do it in a way that makes it like very easy to follow. And it's just great. Like I think a lot of the dialogue is really funny, but it works to convey the story. It's so good. and it feels nostalgic, like we were saying. Like it's nostalgic for that era where the story wasn't necessarily always the focus in a game, and it works in that way and feels like it kind of goes above in like a campier direction that I really liked.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. And yeah, I feel like, yeah, like everything's like really endearing. And I think makes an impression right away. And I think it makes the section where, like, after day 2, where you come back to the police station and it's under attack.
Uh-huh.
Like, one of, like, the best parts of the game, I think. Like, it would have, I think, hit harder, once again, if it was a little later in the game. Much like, yeah, how the gun guy dies, I think, a little too early. It would have hit harder if your safe space was attacked a little bit later, but like I still think it hit pretty hard, like to come back to the police station and have that be a dungeon,
Right.
Yeah, like I'm all about that sort of thing, like recontextualizing like a familiar space. I think is like a really effective thing to do in a game. So
you can see the same plot point being used in another game that really understood how to effectively tell a narrative in Wanted Dead.
right. Everyone's favorite game.
Everyone's favorite game. But no, I generally agree. And also I feel like the precinct level was like maybe kind of one of my favorite ones, weirdly. I liked the like 3-headed dog boss. It's really cool. A lot of the enemies were really neat. There was a little bit of kind of unnecessary dialogue happening, but it makes sense in context. But like, as far as flow goes, it's less interesting. I do want to comment that is a level where you can freely swap all of your items around because you can just walk down to the guy
right
whenever you want to. And I think that works because like the rest of the game is so linear level design wise that even though you can stash items in boxes, like you're never gonna come back to them. So I liked it subverted that in this one where you actually could pick up new items and then take them down to him and store them and then go get them afterward and stuff.
So I guess the game is a horror RPG.
Mm-hmm.
So like I was wondering if you had any like standout parts that like you thought were like especially scary or tense, or I don't know if there was just like any like standout like moments or areas or things. I think like the bread and butter of these kinds of games are those kind of like set PC moments. So like I was just wondering if you had any standouts.
Yeah, I think I did really enjoy. You've already talked about this, so it's a bit of a cop out. But it's weird. It's not like a set piece moment. It happens at a time that doesn't even feel like it's all that climactic. But when you go into the amphitheater in Central Park and Eve dissolves all the people there into a mush and then they become a giant slime. And then I do also want to call out the follow up to that in the sewers when you get to the like big area and the slime is trying to get into the water supply. Having that call back and then like seeing the giant ooze that's made of people, very important to keep in mind, like slide off of the big reservoir area into the water was like a pretty rad moment, I thought.
Yeah, very Ghostbusters too.
Very Ghostbusters too.
No, good call outs. My favorite ones, were I think I've already mostly talked about. Like I thought, the window washing thing where you jump by the enemy after the boss fight, pretty effective. And then like I think after the final boss where like the parasite just like kind of stalks you through the hallways while you're on your way to like blow up the ship or whatever.
Oh, it's sick.
Pretty creepy, yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it just kills you instantly when you get touched by it as well, which makes it pretty threatening and was like actually kind of a tense thing. I felt like I want to talk about bosses after this, and that's maybe the last note that I have on it. So I'll skip over this part specifically, but yeah, there's like a long cutscene right before the final boss where Eve like mentally incinerates a bunch of helicopter pilots like that are flying to launch missiles at her. And that was kind of the thing that I didn't want to happen in this game, but like obviously it didn't like affect gameplay at all. It was all just happened in one cutscene and then it was over essentially. Because it is like it's very like Cloverfield or like
Emmerich.
action movie, disaster movie. Yeah, very Roland Emmerich, where it is just like all this like bombast all of a sudden. And like I understand that like we're now fighting a 50-foot blob in the streets of New York City that like takes, which this does count as one of the best moments in the game, where it like takes down the Statue of Liberty, and then there's the shot of Eve standing in front of it as the ooze is like crawling down the face. Extremely good shot. But yeah, it wasn't like, it didn't like interrupt the flow, pun intended, because it's a ooze, as much. But it was kind of very silly to me in a way. But then the flip side, the very first cutscene where she sets fire to everybody in the theater, I thought was fucking incredible. So they played around with like the space where that power could be done in like a set piecey spotlit way, and I think they did nail it, but then they kind of also included a miss in there as well.
Yeah, I actually thought like that her blowing up the planes by melting the pilots was like a good like reminder of like her power, I guess, because I actually thought that was like pretty effective. Yeah,
I mean, it does also show the futility of the military.
Yeah. Like it just like how powerful she is. Like, oh yeah, she can just melt people. It doesn't matter if you're shooting missiles at her.
Okay, but yeah, I do want to talk about boss fights a little bit. Before we go, the final boss of our podcast. I don't have like a bunch to say or anything. I do generally really like the designs of most of the bosses. A couple of them are just Eve, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
They got the design right once, and then they got to use it multiple times. But then you do fight like a big centipede that like rotates around the screen. I can't say in good conscience that that's like a good boss design, but it is a very weird design that makes something really unusual very video gamey, because it felt like it was like dodging just like danger zones on the floor at times, which is a weird sort of way to think about this game. So it definitely like stood out in my mind. But the final boss, well, the T-Rex boss, I feel like we should at least mention. The enemies in the museum level are so bizarre and also really inconsistent. There's the dinosaur that spasms around all the time and jumps and is, to my mind, completely unavoidable if you're anywhere close to it when it does its attack. And it is like the hardest thing that you'll see in the whole thing, because the armadillo enemies are actually like weirdly very fair for this game, because you can actually interrupt their attacks and they roll in a straight line and don't like turntable shift in place so that they hit you. And then there's like a whole cutscene of a pterodactyl like breaking in, and I thought it was a mini boss, and it died in like 3 hits. I was like, what happened?
That'll happen every now and then.
Yeah. And it turns out that it's because the pterodactyl is just like a regular enemy, but they just gave it this introduction scene like the dog in Resident Evil, except it happens when you're 8 hours into a game somehow.
Yeah. Most areas have like an encounter where you'll run in. They don't have a cutscene, but like it's like some kind of like bigger, unique enemy that feels like it's going to be a mini boss, and then you kill it in like 4 hits.
Yeah. Yes, I guess technically speaking, the rat did get a cutscene.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I can't count it out. But yeah, so there's like a mini boss fight with a Triceratops in the museum level, and that leads into a boss fight against a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I I found the Triceratops to be emblematic of a lot of the problems with this game's combat, which is that they make you fight stuff in rooms that are way too small to fight them in, and so you just get hit constantly. But then the T-Rex boss fight is, I think, could have been my favorite, might still be my favorite boss fight in the game. Just because he felt so much more fair in most ways than a lot of the other boss enemies that just felt like they had unavoidable attacks. He does swivel his head like an owl to hit you with the fire breath attack, even if you're directly behind him somehow. But other than that, I felt way more in control during that fight than I did like at any other point during the game.
Yeah. I think my version of that was the spider boss at the on the roof of the hospital. That boss felt satisfying to learn in the sense that like the first couple of times you get hit by the spider web attack, you're like, oh, dude, fuck that. Giant fucking range attack, whatever. But like you can like learn the tell for it and like the kind of range. You're like, oh, I have to like run diagonally, or like you can kind of like figure out a strategy, and it's like satisfying. So like I felt like that was the one for me that felt like the most well designed. But yeah, I also like the T-Rex. So a lot of the bosses do have that kind of problem where like it feels like if it was 1998 and you were a child and you played this game over and over, like there's probably like strategies, like ways you can figure out around attacks. But yeah, like playing it now, like like you're wrestling with that jank of like clipping into like hitboxes and like you said, like the rooms that are too small and et cetera and so forth. So
right. It is a lot. I will give the spider boss credit also for that. I also liked that
they give you a big enough space to fight it in.
Yeah, they actually put you on a rooftop. It feels very nice to be there. I will say it's interesting because like the range for the guns in the game is depicted as like a dome over you.
Oh yeah, I can't believe we haven't mentioned that.
Yeah. And so when you're in a really small room, you'll notice that your range covers the entire room. And so like it's a way to do range with strict cutoffs in a game that also has fixed camera angles, because like you can't do much to like just consistently show the range. So I did like that, and I did get a little bit frustrated on the spider boss, maybe owing to me not mentioning it as one of my favorites, because I was like, you would go into it and I was like, why can't I hit it ever? Why is it so far away from me?
It does move away from you. It's because it's programmed smart.
It is, yeah.
It's a nice cat and mouse. It's a nice bird and spider.
It's a good bird and spider situation
or something. Yeah. I found it kind of satisfying to fight that one particularly. I feel like I had something to jump to. Do you have more on bosses?
I wanted to talk about the final bosses, but only in the sense that like I am okay with this. I think Eve's boss fight was just like a face tank fight for me. Like I just took every attack. Every time she did the grab attack, I got hit by it. I'm not proud of it, but that's what happened. And I just sort of lived through the whole thing by taking lots of damage. But it and also the ultimate being fight are sort of trivialized by the final parasite power, where you morph into an Eve-like kind of mitochondria being and then beat the shit out of them in like a 10-hit combo, which is always the RPG's greatest move. I am like fine with that because it does feel like a big moment, right? But then the other thing is,
It's like going fierce deity.
it's kind of like going fierce deity, but it is like a little unsatisfying. It also feels like it would run contradictory to what Aya's views would be. But they do include a line when she walks into the boss fight that's like, if I'm like you, I would only use it to make sure that I destroy you or something. I don't remember
it's
the
like
line.
That line at the beginning of the Ace Ventura, the second Ace Ventura movie. It's like, I wouldn't do that if I were you. It's like, well, if you were me, then I'd be you, and I'd use your body to get to the top.
Man, do I not remember that at all.
Yeah, you can't stop me, no matter who you are.
She does do a Ace Ventura when she walks in. But no, that was pretty much all I had. I thought that the final boss, I think the Eve fight is just kind of like nonsense. Like it's just like it's like a really long fight, and she spends a lot of it off
It's got to
screen.
be a JRPG and have like 4 fucking phases to the final boss.
Right. But then I think the actual 4-phase final boss against the ultimate being is actually kind of fun. Like I thought that one was cool.
Yeah.
The different phases felt really different from each other. Whereas I think Eve was kind of just like a bullet sponge. But that's all I had on bosses.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. I don't have anything else. The only other thing I had to talk about was just, and I don't know if this will lead to any interesting conversation, it's just something I thought about. And I don't know if you looked, I obviously looked into the promotional art for this. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the like illustrations, like promotional illustrations and like the cover art of the game and like the art booklet and stuff have Aya like very sexualized. And I don't know if you were aware of that at all. Because like it doesn't really like match with her portrayal in the game, which I think she's like a pretty cool character,
right?
But like it's just something that made me reflect on the times, or like kind of like the growing pains of video games, like finding their identity as an art form. Because I feel like that was very, very, very of the time. Or if like a game had a female protagonist, they had to try to make them a sex symbol. Right. And that was like very much the case with this game, only in the promotional material. So I just something I thought was interesting. Just like looking back on that era of video games, or like we need like a Lara Croft.
Yeah, I'm curious. I obviously didn't look into all of the promotional material, but I'm curious a little bit as to whether or not that is like mirrored in all markets, or if like that's a Western market thing versus an Eastern market, like where, like how that would differ. But I don't have that information on me right now, so I'm not going to speculate.
Right.
I will say they do start the game. It's weird because I agree that Aya is like within the game, generally speaking, not a sexualized character. They imply a romantic, a probably unrequited romantic connection between her and Maida at the end.
It's very Otacon.
It's kind of Otacon. He seems like he might get a nosebleed and talk about his Japanese animes.
Uh-huh.
But I think throughout the majority of the game, it's pretty neutral on her. It's literally the first sequence of the game makes like some notice of her in that, because like there's a guy who's like that he's taking her to the opera, and she's
like on a blind date.
Yeah, and he's like stumbling over himself when he's talking to her and stuff, and like is really like flustered and in his head. And I did assume that was going to be like a part of her character, and was pleased to discover that it is not. So like I'll give you like I think it is weird that they chose to do that, and it was most likely more of a marketing decision than it was one by the game developers themselves.
Yeah, and I feel like it paid off, because I think this game actually did well. which
Yeah.
I was surprised by, because I expected it to be like, this game bombed horribly, but like there are a couple of sequels and stuff, so it actually did well, and I wouldn't be surprised if that was in part because of that sexualized marketing.
Right. I did wonder if it did better than Square thought that it was going to, because
I
my
think so.
understanding of the game is that they didn't print enough of them, and they're really hard to come by nowadays.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I actually really like the game starts out with her in like an evening gown. Like I think that's like subversive and cool in just the right way. Like because like you start out playing as like a woman going to the opera, and then you have to like jump down into like a fucking basement and like fight mutant rats and stuff. So I thought that was like actually like super effective. Like the contrast. So yeah, I thought that was really cool. So like I feel like the text itself handles the character super well. But yeah, like the marketing doesn't. And apparently that like affects her portrayal in the sequels and stuff, and it's not supposedly not as good, so
Yeah.
it's an unfortunate knock-on effect.
Yeah, I don't know much about the sequels, but everything I've heard is that like they go narratively really far downhill, which is unfortunate. Yeah. They might be better games like from a gameplay perspective, but I don't know much about it.
I don't think so.
No.
Everything that I looked into suggests that they're worse in every way.
Great. That's good to know. I also, just on the same note, I do want to call out Eve's design because it is also, it's so funny because Eve's design, despite being this like sci-fi horror, body horror monster idea, it feels at home, or would feel at home in a different Square game, like a Final Fantasy game, as like a boss.
Oh, she could
like,
totally be a Final Fantasy boss.
Yeah, like for sure. And I think that like part of that is also the sexualization of her design. I think is like something that was really common in that. But it's this like sexualization over like a grotesque skin. And it is, I always find that to be an interesting dynamic, and to like look into like how it's portrayed, because sometimes it's done in a way that's like intentionally supposed to be titillating and just like is gross, and there's other times when it's saying something more about like, you know, like how we perceive things versus how they are, etc. Like it's been used across the spectrum in a bunch of different ways in a lot of different media. And it's so weird to me because Eve is treated so neutrally in this game where like, yeah, Eve is the bad guy in the sense that she's trying to bring about the end of humanity. But like nobody comments on Eve's appearance at all, despite the fact that she's like 9 feet tall and has like enormous claws and like some kind like a leg that's just like coming out of the bottom of her body or torso.
Yeah.
Like she's a nightmare.
Yeah. Now, my read on that is like I feel like in the sense that she looks like attractive, I think it's supposed to kind of be to make her look like motherly, like because she is like named Eve, right? Like as in like the mother of all humanity, etc. And then like and I feel like the shape of like her design. And it kind of looks like a shrimp, and
it is shrimp.
I have like the Orphan of Kaz to thank for the fact that I will always know that like also placentas are in the shape of a shrimp. So I feel like that's actually intentional that she's shaped that way, for thematic reasons. So I do think there's like some interesting things going on there. But yeah, I don't know that I ever read her design as like sexual, personally.
Yeah,
other than like that she's got cleavage.
Yeah, that's kind of to put a fine point on it. That's kind of what I mean. Titties.
Yeah. You just do mommy's her big titty mama milkers.
Her big titty mama milkers. Because when she, because it isn't sexualized in the sense that like the character doesn't act in a sexualized manner and other people don't act in a sexualized manner to her. It's just that the design itself emphasizes like it's a mix between like feminine form and horrible monster. And I wish that it was
classic horror.
Yeah, I wish that the game said more about it. Is all I'm trying to say.
That's fair.
Yeah, but yeah, no. Otherwise, like I do agree. Just like on the note of you saying that she looked like a shrimp. Yeah. I don't have the source on this one. I just was talking to somebody I knew who had played this game before, and apparently in lore, the parasites, the beings created by Eve, I don't know. In the game that I played, their level of sentience was assumed to be 0. But apparently they idealize mollusks and think that they are more, or arthropods, I don't remember, and think that they are like a more perfect form than the human form, and therefore strive to look like them.
So like a helix shape.
Yeah, maybe it's like a Uzumaki spiral into madness.
I guess that would make, because a shrimp is kind of almost there.
Yeah,
placenta, but then there's also etc. Like you think of the placenta item. From
I haven't
Bloodborne.
stopped thinking about it since you mentioned it.
Yeah, like from Bloodborne, it's like it is a spiral shape.
Yeah. Yeah, so there could be some subtext in there that we are sort of verging on.
And it's probably in the novel.
Yeah, it might be in the novels. Oh, that's probably where the lore comes from.
Yeah.
But yeah, then you have like the enemies in the hospital that look like crab men that walk around on all fours.
Yeah, that is definitely like a primordial kind of symbol. So I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because there's the whole evolution theme. Lots of similarities to Pokemon.
You know what? This game is kind of like Pokemon Final Fantasy Bloodborne. That's how I would... That's the meets.
Cross Resident Evil?
Cross Resident Evil. That's the meets. And then we'll just throw in a meats, but spelled with a MEATS because it's like gross body horror. Okay.
Firearm thoughts?
Nah, that's too boring. This is a game about like people transform.
Ooh.
Do we have transformative thoughts?
My transformative thoughts. So yeah, Parasite Eve. Like, I'm glad that we finally played this. I think we mentioned on the last episode or at the beginning of this one, like, it's a game we've both known about for a while. But it's hard to get a copy of. And luckily I didn't know this was on the PlayStation 3 PlayStation Network store. So I was just able to buy a copy. I did not think that was easily possible in today's day and age. But if you have a PS3, you can just buy this if you didn't know. For like $6. But
okay, that's actually cheaper than I was expecting.
Yeah. And I also learned on the PlayStation 3, the digital like memory cards, you actually had to clear space on them like a real one. Because I started the game, got to the first checkpoint, and it was like, there's no available space on your memory card. And I was like, what? The fuck are you talking about? So I had to quit the game, go to the memory card, delete a bunch of data, and then start it over. But anyway, so that's a thing.
That's very weird.
But anyway, but yeah, I actually quite enjoyed playing this. I mentioned earlier, like it feels nostalgic. Even though I didn't play this at the time, like it gave me nostalgia for the era. And I know, like, if I had played this as a kid, it would have scared the crap out of me. I feel like it is very creepy. And yeah, delivers on the body horror. And yeah, like it has that like weird pseudoscience, and like I feel like it definitely would have gotten under my skin for sure. And yeah, like, I think it's got a lot of interesting ideas. Like I think like the actual like combat system, like being like a more active, where you can run around and like you can like see your range as this dome, like this wire frame dome over you. It's really unique and interesting. Yeah, like I think the gun system where you can like modify the guns is a cool idea. It's not the best execution. Yeah, there's like a lot of cool things. I think the storytelling's pretty good. Like it can get bogged down in some details, but like overall, I think it's an enjoyable story to play through. I like that it's shorter. Like that's like kind of it's a rarity for Square anyway at the time. So yeah, like there's a lot going for it, but like I do feel like it definitely suffers from a lot of the jank of the time. Definitely makes it harder to go back to. And like I feel like this game, and I've said this about a handful of games, but like I feel like this definitely is in the category of like should get remade or have a sequel or a reboot or whatever. Because like there's a lot of cool ideas. Like I feel like they could remake this, they could revamp the combat system to be like more like Chrono Trigger-y, where like the enemies are just on the map rather than random encounters, and then like it's kind of a seamless transition into the battle screen sort of thing. And like they could lean into the survival horror elements more. They could make it a bit scarier. They could make the resource management like, you know, like I just feel like reapproaching this game from a modern lens, I think you could make it work so much better. Because like there's a really great framework there, a lot of cool ideas, and I just think like if they reapproached it now, it could be like something really, really cool. They could be fully realized, I guess, is what I'm saying. So this is a series, like I know there's been like, it's one of those series that enough people remember, like it's like a cult classic. There have been a handful of times where there's been rumblings of them doing a new one or doing a remake. And I just hope it actually happens, because I think this is a great candidate. So I guess that'll end my final thoughts. Really cool. And still I'm still able to appreciate it now, but yeah, obviously there's a lot of room for improvement. You know, like it shows its age.
Yeah. Yeah. It does show its age, and I think in a rare twist, I feel like I might actually think that this game was more approachable coming back from a modern lens than a lot of the games that we have talked about, where I've been like, I didn't like that this was such an old game that made me think like I was 14 again. But I think that comes down to comes a lot down to why I ended up liking the game, and that is because I was so not focused on the nitty-gritty mechanical details and was very focused on the things that were fucking awesome, like the cutscenes and the character designs and the enemy designs, which all are like, this is exactly what I want when we do Halloween games. I want like one game that just like did a very weird thing. And I feel like this is such a step outside of the norm for Square that it's such an interesting artifact to go back to. Especially since, as you pointed out earlier in the episode, like it has so much of Square's star power attached to it. It is kind of, it's such a strange artifact of the past that I just really appreciated all the things that it did in that way. I did find the weapon upgrade system to be confusing, and I found that the combat made me feel like I was a baby trying to control a game, with how infrequently I felt like I was able to dodge attacks. But I think that that's all kind of part of the design. And if it's a thing that you can get over, which I do recommend trying, I do think that what this game brings to the table is still really cool right now. And I would also love to see a remake or a remaster or a reboot or whatever with this, with the same sort of design ethos that this game has. But even as it stands, I think this is a cool game and one that I was happy to go back to and look at, especially given that I only knew it on reputation, and I feel like it actually lived up to it to the extent that I was aware of it. So pretty cool. Thank you for listening to Describing the Skybox this week.
What are we talking about next time?
Next time, we're going to be talking about Slitterhead, which is just a distressing to say name, but it's a much more recent game. Also a Japanese body horror game, so it kind of fits in with the theme that this game has going on. That's more of like an action game. It's a mission-based action game. So maybe a little bit easier to get into if this one was a little bit too obtuse for you. But until that time, you can get a hold of us. All of our contact information is on our website at describingtheskybox.com, where you can find links to our Discord server, our YouTube channel. You can listen to any of our old episodes, including ones that we did on Trapped and Wanted Dead for the
Signalis.
Signalis. If you wanted to listen to the 2 episodes on games that we did this year where you play as a cop, Wanted Dead is the other one. Yeah.
I was trying to go for like PS1 horror.
Oh yeah. I mean, we just did Mouthwashing, which is like styled like a PS1 game.
I feel like it's styled a little bit more like a late 90s PC game, but
that's probably true. We did talk about the original Resident Evil, all those years
that's
ago.
true. Yeah. But yeah, no shortage of horror. So yeah, lots of survival horror to choose from.
Yeah, and to come. So
yes,
the spooky. Ooh.
Yeah, I feel like Slitterhead sounds like a late 2000s horror movie.
Well, I'll tell you this. I've played about 5 hours of it right now, and it feels a little bit like a late 2000s horror movie.
Yep.
So, yeah. Looking forward to talking about that one. It's got some interesting decisions to go over. Fucking take aim and then stand perfectly still while you fire 3 bullets into the like button.
Get the green key card so you can ride the elevator up to ring that bell.
Be careful in the comment section, lest one of them actually be a horrible monster that transforms into a Cerberus that has a head that heals itself annoyingly in the middle of the fight.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Don't let your mitochondria burst into flame.
Don't let the mitochondria bite. Or whatever.
We all know that the Game Boy Color isn't made of silicone.
I know. It's like the one thing everybody knows about the Game Boy Color.
I learned that in kindergarten.